Hello children, welcome back to the channel. As discussed in my previous video, we will today be starting to uh, to understand the motion in two dimension in terms of vectors. So why we have studied vectors for so long and so many videos have been made on vectors will now come to fruition now in this particular video onwards. First of all, let's define certain things. Let us say we have a plane, two-dimensional plane, and let's take the coordinate system x and y. And let's say in this plane, at point P, given by the coordinates x and y, there is a particle. So, in terms of vector, the position of the particle P can be given by a vector r, which can be expressed in terms of its components x I cap plus y j cap. This particular vector r from the origin that defines the position of a vector has a particular name. It's a very difficult name to understand. It's known as the position vector. Why position vector? Because it gives the position of a point. So any vector that gives the position of a point in a given plane is known by the name position vector. So since we are talking about motion, let's say that this particular point, particle P that was at point P starts moving and traverses certain path, say this pin like this, and ends up at this particular point Q given by say x dash y dash. Alright, so now the new position of the particle will be x dash y dash, right, or Q. So the particle will have moved from here to this. So the new position of the particle will be given by another vector r dash, which can be written in terms of its components as r dash, if this is at P and this is at Q, is equal to x dash I cap plus y dash j cap, the coordinates. If you draw perpendiculars here and here, like this, this entire thing or this entire vector will be given by x dash I cap, and also if you draw the perpendicular like this will be y dash j cap. So what in effect has happened is that the particle has shifted through a distance delta x say, which is equal to x dash minus x along the x-axis, and also through a distance delta y given by y dash minus y along the y-axis. So the displacement of the particle has taken in both the axes, both the different axes. So what is the final displacement? What is the net displacement of the object? The net displacement of the object will be given by definition a vector from initial to final, right? So if I draw a vector from initial to final point, then this particular thing delta r will give you the displacement of the particle from P to Q. Now this vector that gives displacement of the particle will be known as the yes, guess it correct. The position is given by position vector, displacement is given by displacement vector. The term vector is used to emphasize that these are vector quantities. Okay, now how to find this vector delta r? Because we need to find the displacement. To find the displacement, to find delta r, if we consider this triangle OPQ, then we see that OP plus PQ, triangle law, that is vector R plus PQ is vector delta R is equal to vector R dash. This is the resultant of vector sum, or the two vectors, given vectors. So delta R can be given by R prime minus R, or if we express it in terms of the components, then we have x dash I cap plus y prime j cap, not dash prime, right, minus x I cap plus y j cap. Or in other words, what we have, equating the I components, x prime minus x I cap plus y prime minus y j cap. So what is x prime minus x? X prime minus x is delta x, that is change in position in x direction. So this is equal to delta x I cap plus this is delta y j cap. So delta R vector is given by this term. So displacement of the particle from point A to P to Q is given by this particular expression. This is going to be important, and we are going to use this multiple times. So let's just write it here. Delta R equals to delta x I cap plus delta y j cap. Fine. This is the displacement vector. Now we clearly know that for a particle to move from here to here, some time has elapsed, right? It takes time for a thing to move from one point to another. So let us say this displacement delta R has taken place over a period of time equals to delta t. So if delta t is the time taken, then the term displacement delta R divided by delta t by definition will give us the average velocity. Or in terms of components, we can substitute these values of delta x, delta t. So we have delta x I cap plus delta y j cap by delta t. So average velocity is given by delta x by delta t I cap plus delta y by delta t j cap. Since it's a scalar, we have opened the, but delta x by delta t can be given as the average velocity along the x-axis, right, into I cap plus this is average velocity along y-axis into j cap. So basically what we have found is that when a particle moves in a two-dimensional plane, its velocity along the x-axis and the y-axis can be separated and expressed in two different ways. This x-axis velocity along x-axis will be independent of the velocity along the y-axis. They are two mutually perpendicular directions, so y velocity and x velocities can be treated separately. This is going to be very, very important while we discuss the motion, particularly in two dimension, like projectile motion, say. So we have to keep this in mind very, very clearly, that average velocity is given by this. Now what about the instantaneous velocity? So moving forward, we know that instantaneous velocity v is given by limit delta t tends to 0, right, delta r by delta t. What this particular term means, limit delta t tends to 0. Now what we have seen is that in this particular case the particle has moved from P to Q over a relatively longer period of time, say delta t. When delta t becomes smaller and smaller, what will happen? The displacement covered will be smaller and smaller, right? So the point Q will come closer and closer to point P. Now in the limiting case delta t tends to 0, that is delta t is very small, arbitrarily small. Now in the mathematics class we will be explaining very about limits very in detail, so we are not going into the details of limits. But when delta t becomes so small that it's difficult or virtually impossible for us to identify it from 0, that is point P and Q will be so very close to each other that it appears as if P and Q are at the same point. So they are not actually at the same point, they are very close to each other. Now if you look at this, when P was here and Q was here, this vector was given as the displacement vector. When Q came closer to P, new position of Q is this, then this will be the displacement vector. If I move Q closer and closer, when in the limiting case Q comes very close and reaches almost P, then the direction of displacement will become tangential to the path. So in that particular case, when the time is very small, so that the initial and the final position are very close to each other, the path or the displacement will be almost the same as the path taken, because the length becomes so small it becomes almost a straight line, and so the displacement becomes tangential. In that particular limit we know this as instantaneous velocity. In this particular limit, what we will have is that the direction of the displacement will be tangential to the path, and so the velocity, direction of the instantaneous velocity will also be along that tangent. So instantaneous velocity is always tangential to the path followed at the point where the velocity is measured. At point P, if we measure the instantaneous velocity, it will always be tangential to the curve at point P. Say the particle was actually moving from like this along this path, say. So whatever tangent is there at point Q, it will be tangential, so it will be like this. Okay, so in this case, in this limit, we can rewrite this as delta Rs dr by dt. Okay. Now, also, if you look at this equation can also be rewritten as, again, limit delta t tends to 0. Instead of delta r, we can write delta x I cap plus delta y j cap, whole thing divided by delta t. And if we open up the limit and also the bracket, we have limit delta t tends to 0, delta x by delta t I cap plus limit delta t tends to 0, delta y by delta t j cap. Okay, or in other words, we can write this as dx by dt. We have dx by dt I cap plus dy by dt j cap. Now, therefore, the instantaneous velocity is given by Vx I cap plus Vy j cap. Fine. So, what it signifies? Let's say this is the path followed, and here we have measured the velocity at some particular point, and the velocity is found to be along this. This is v, instantaneous velocity. Then it has two components along the x-axis and along the y-axis. This is Vy and this is Vx, and this angle is theta. Fine. So we can complete the parallelogram like this. So this will be longer. So from this, what we can find is that modulus of instantaneous velocity is simply Vx squared plus Vy squared, square root of this, and from the diagram tan of theta, that is the direction of that tangent, or the instantaneous velocity, direction is given by Vy by Vx. These two again are very, very important results. We need to remember this very clearly. Now let us say a particle is moving, and now the motion is not constant, that is, its velocity is changing. Let us say at some particular point, say P, its velocity was V, and some other point Q, it has become V dash. So what is the average acceleration, change in velocity per unit time? So average acceleration will be given by final velocity v dash minus initial velocity v divided by the time taken, right? However, from this diagram, it is very clear that v plus delta v equal to v prime, or v prime minus v equal to delta v. So we can substitute this with delta v, change in velocity, by delta t. Right. Now, the direction of the velocity will be along the vector delta v, that is, direction of the acceleration. Average acceleration will be directed along this. Okay, now delta v can be written as delta vx I cap plus delta vy j cap, because any vector can be expressed in terms of two mutually perpendicular directions, and in this case resolution of vectors along the axis, coordinate axis, we have done this, or in other words we find this divided by delta t, or we can write delta vx by delta t I cap plus delta vy by delta t j cap, that is ax I cap plus ay j cap. So what we have seen is that even the acceleration can be expressed in terms of two components, as it was the case with the other quantities like the position, the velocity, now the acceleration. Now if we consider this particular expression and take the limiting case where delta t limit tends to 0, delta v by delta t. This by definition gives you the instantaneous acceleration. This will be equal to, say, using this limit, delta t tends to 0, delta vx by delta t I cap plus limit delta t tends to 0, delta vy by delta t j cap. or we can simply write it as ax I cap plus ay j cap in terms of the instantaneous velocities. Oh, yeah. Now, what is ax? Say one of the components, let's say ax is, we have simply said that limit delta Vx by delta t, limit delta Vx by delta t is dVx by dt. However, if you remember a little while earlier, what we had found is that Vx was dx by dt, the position. So this can be written as dx by dt. So ax is nothing but the second order derivative of x with respect to time. That is to say, it's the second order derivative of position with respect to time. Similarly, ay will be d square y by dt square.